So let me tell you a secret that I learned way too late. Most of us learn that way too late. I learned it well after my children grew up. One of my children is here, and ventured out into the world. That when children grow up and they transition into adult life, no one asks them whether they did their homework. No one asks them their worst subject, their most annoying behavior, because no one cares. If you're going to get somewhere in life, it comes from harnessing strengths. Think about that. When we look at our children's report cards, what do we go to first? The lowest grade. We have an affinity for trying to fix what's wrong, believing that fixing is the path to success in adulthood. But success in life comes from harnessing assets and strengths. You've heard other speakers tonight talk about resilience, the ability to function well under adversity. So the question I'll ask you is where, when, and how do you become a stronger you? So let's start with the where. So the where begins in our families, right? We're not salmon and snakes born with enough instinct to survive. We're not bear cubs that need a year from mama. Our children require 20 or 30 years now in our society until they're ready to grow up and venture out into the world. And we are a species that evolved in family groups. So where in the family? When? Probably the moment of birth. Some believe even before the moment of birth. So that's the where, that's the when. The question is how? How does it happen? What is it that we do that for thousands of generations parents before us did, long before there were schools, long before there were all kinds of institutions telling us the best ways of raising our children? How did parents do it? And Dan Siegel writes that we as caregivers are architects. Architects, we are designers of how genetics influences brain development. But the intermediate step is experience. You could have all the genes to speak. If no one ever speaks to you, you will never speak. You could have all the genes to socialize. If no one ever gives you the opportunity to interact with others, you won't know how to do it. Genes can't operate without a push, an experiential push from the environment. And we caregivers, we provide that experience. But you know where we've gone wrong? We've gone wrong in believing that our children are born as blank slates, as tabula rasas, as it were. That it is our job to infuse in them everything they need to know. And I think that's wrong. Now, did you ever wonder how children learn to speak? Why do they speak? What is it about their experiences that drives that? Did you ever wonder how children learn to manage their emotions? And by the way, these are family pictures. How do they learn that? Most children are born Klingons. Most 2-year-olds look like they have bipolar disorder. How do they learn to let the front of the brain regulate the middle of the brain? And the fact of the matter is that the front of the brain gets information about the world a few milliseconds after the front of the brain. And the middle of the brain, well, the front of the brain gets it a few milliseconds after the middle of the brain. The middle of the brain deals with the world emotionally. And part of growing up, part of learning to not brain dance, as it were, is to let that front of the brain do its job. How do children learn to acquire knowledge? Why do they want to learn? How do children learn to master challenging activities? By the way, that's me. A long, long time ago. My mother was very prudent. She said, "You'll grow into that bicycle, Sam." And so for the first summer, I sat on it and looked handsome, but I couldn't move it. So she would have to come and move it for me. How do children learn to socialize? How do they do this? And for thousands of generations, how did parents influence children? How did they do it? And it was, they didn't have books. They didn't have institutions. There's me and my dad. By the way, I was the first mini-me, long before Mike Myers thought of that idea for a movie. And look at how happy I am there. I am connected. That strength I gathered from a parent. There's my mom and I, because some people say, well, don't leave your mom out. So there's my mom and I was an only child, a baby boomer, as it were. And until recent times, as I point out, there were no schools. There were no organized institutions. How did parents do it? What did they do? How did they know? Did they write information on the caves' walls to tell the next generation how to raise children? No. I'll tell you how they did it. They did it by drawing on 7 instincts, the 7 instincts that I think make us human. And so in the time I have left here, I want to tell you about those 7 instincts, particularly one that I want you to think about, and send you off on your way. So we're not talking about instincts like a bird building a nest, because that's a blind activity. We're not talking about instincts like a salmon swimming upstream. We're talking about instincts in human beings that guide our development. Think about language. Language is the window into the mind. Lets me understand you, lets you understand me. And in our species, instincts represent a way of thinking or acting that increases our survival, whatever that way of thinking or acting is. And there's my mom, by the way, a long, long time ago with her parents. And I would argue that parents over many generations have wanted the same thing for their children that we want for ours. We want them to be happy. We want them to be successful. We want them to make connections, to live a good life. And I think, ultimately, outcome for our species, and by the way, I used ChatGPT to make these images. Isn't that interesting? I said, make a child falling off a swing in a farm, and that's what I received. So how does it happen? Let me tell you about these instincts. Here are the 7 instincts, and it's in a book that Bob Brooks and I just wrote called Tenacity in Children. And there's one in particular that I want to spend some time on. But I want you to think about these, and I want you to again appreciate an instinct is a way of thinking or behaving or feeling that comes in the genes, but is only expressed through experience. If you don't have the experience, the genes for complex behaviors can't work. So I want you to think about yourselves, think about your children, and consider these. Intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic inside motivation, what drives you to do it? Intrinsic motivation. Young children, they want to help you cook, clean, drive the car. We think it's cute, but really it's that instinct to be part of the group. And what happens when they're 7 or 8 and you say, can you help? They say, oh, what have you got for me? But that's learned behavior. That's part of the cultural milieu, as it were. But initially, children don't need any payoff to do what they do. And they're intuitively optimistic. Young children think they can drive a car. They think they can do anything. And that's because growing up in our species takes a very long time. And if you're not optimistic that you can succeed, after a while, you won't try. Think about being a young child. Watch young children trying to walk. They get up, they fall down. They get up, they fall down. They get up, they fall down. I went up on the ski mountain. I tried to snowboard a while ago. I fell down once. I was done. That's it. I am not intuitively optimistic that I will be a snowboarder. Okay? So think about it. Compassionate empathy. Young children will see the world through the eyes of others and offer assistance and empathy. They just do it. And there's all of this research to demonstrate that they do it without anyone telling them what to do. They are responsible. They do it without anyone telling them, you must, you have to, without anyone paying them. They are genuinely altruistic. I'll tell you a quick story about altruism. And people think altruism is falling on a grenade, but there's all kinds of altruism. And in this particular research study, a researcher is working with a baby or a young child, and they're sitting at a little table. The researcher drops the pencil. The child gets out of the chair, picks up the pencil, and gives it back to the researcher without ever being asked. The researcher drops it again. The child gets out of the chair, hands it back. Researcher drops the pencil again. Child gets out of the chair, hands it back. Not once does the child glare at the researcher and exclaim, How many times are you going to do that? Stop dropping that pencil. No. You know, chimps do the same thing. They'll put it in their mouths, and then they'll give it back to you. Dogs are trained a little differently. If you drop something, the dog does nothing. You have to throw it, and the dog goes to get it. And in that research study, the researcher then took the pencil and threw it. And guess what? The child didn't go get it. Because the child knew intuitively, I don't know why you threw that, but I'm not going to get that. That's your problem. That isn't my problem. Altruism. Fairness. Children are intuitively fair, believe it or not. And fairness is such a big deal for us, is it not? It's not fair. It's not why. We have to stop and think. It's not just our experiences. How do our genes, this collective unconscious we share, how does that shape how we think about fairness? My wife and I have 3 little dogs. They're sisters. We line them up. I give 2 of them a favorite treat, and the third one gets a treat, but not the same as the other 2. And the other 2 go running off with their treat, and the third one sits there and looks at me like, hey, this isn't fair, right? Are you aware of the monkey studies where 2 rhesus monkeys can see each other, and a researcher gives one a favorite grape, and the other one gets a piece of cucumber? And he looks at the cucumber, and he eats it, and then sees the other one get a grape through the glass cage. And then the other monkey gets another piece of cucumber. This time he looks at it, he throws it down. You can watch this on YouTube. Third time, the researcher gives the other monkey a grape. Monkey's very happy. And then he gives this other monkey another piece of cucumber. And this time, the monkey looks at it, looks at the researcher, throws it down, steps on it, defecates on it, picks the whole thing up, and throws it back out at the researcher. Fairness. The last one, simultaneous intelligence. And I wish I had more time, but I would encourage you to learn more about each of these, because it's who we are. It's how we got where we are. It's why we as a hominid species are here, and the others are not, including Neanderthals, who are actually pretty smart, but they're not here any longer. So look at these. Intuitively optimistic and intrinsically motivated. Compassionate, empathy, altruism, and responsibility. Fairness. And the last one I want to tell you about, simultaneous intelligence. And I'm going to take the remaining time I have to tell you about it, because I think it's exciting. Because for the first time, we now realize that intelligence is not about how much you know. Intelligence is about what you do with the information that you have. I call it simultaneous intelligence, seeing how all the pieces of a problem fit together and leaving no piece unconsidered. That's what critical thinking is about. That's what intelligence is about. Seeing patterns in the environment. 1 million years ago, our ability to see a pattern in the environment kept us alive, kept us safe, found food or nurturance or water. So let's look at your simultaneous intelligence for a minute. Look at these numbers. What number comes next? 12. It's a predictable sequence. Doesn't require a lot of, quote, critical thinking. What number comes next here? 21. You win. Come see me later. In order to solve that problem, you have to see how all the pieces fit together at the same time. If you leave a piece out, you can't solve the problem. If I give you 10 facts about an animal and you randomly pick 3, you may choose an animal that matches the 3, but doesn't match the remaining 7. Critical thinking is about using all the pieces of information at your disposal to solve a problem. And creativity is taking a piece from out there of information that other people don't have and putting it in your box with all the pieces everybody else has and coming up with something new or novel. When we define intelligence this way, and I've developed a test that's used all over the world with children, whether you're a child in the outback, an Aboriginal child in the outback of Australia, whether you're an affluent child in suburbs of New York City, it doesn't matter where you are. At the same age, Children perform the same way. So knowing the months of the year, the days of the week, the capitals of every state, that's information, that's knowledge, that's not intelligence. And education is being revolutionized by our appreciation that intelligence can be taught, that critical thinking can be modeled, that people can learn to think more effectively, not just about their schoolwork, but about their personal lives, about their professional lives. So these are the 7 instincts of tenacity. We used the word tenacity, Bob Brooks and I. And remember that biology is not destiny. It affects probability. Keep in mind that 80% of who we are is in our genes. We know this from identical twin studies. 80%. So you would think, well, why bother? 20%. But if I could control 1% of the stock market, I wouldn't be here. So the 20% that you and I can influence in our children, in our spouses, in our family members, in our students, makes 100% difference in the quality of their lives and the lives they live for the rest of their lives. So, Dan Siegel said, Neil Postman said that children are living messages we send to a time and place we'll never see. I took this picture in Ireland, and I saw that sign, Museum of Childhood, and I thought, okay, so now children are extinct. They've put children in a museum, and that's the end of it. It's actually a toy museum. Dan Brown said, may our philosophies keep pace with our technologies, may our compassion keep pace with our powers, and may love, not fear, be the engine of change. So I'll challenge you each today to think, to consider, who are we as a species? Why are we here? How did we get here? And to appreciate the role our instincts play, not just in growing up, and not just in how we raise our children, but throughout our lives. This is who we are, and this isn't going to change. And there are some instincts that aren't so good. Sometimes irrational belief, sometimes unprovoked aggression, sometimes our fear of difference. Those are phenomena that maybe kept us alive and today maybe aren't so good. And I'll leave you with one last comment there. I've seen thousands of children, and I'm always amazed to learn something new. Maggie drew that of me. Maggie thought my first name was Gold and my last name was Seam. And to this day, she calls me Gold. Thank you very much.